You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching the Meta Show.
Yep.
Excellent.
And we have audio too. Audio working. Yay.
The audio is working. That is always good to see.
It's always good.
I can see that we've got the Capital Training Op and CC in the background, and oh, that's fascinating. I think that my Twitch screen is just completely screwed up, but because I can't even see anyone chatting. I can see people chatting in the background on yours. I'm going to close this and reopen it and hope for the best.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got a pretty interesting show today. We've got unfortunate circumstances for it, though. I mean, this is not what any of us would want to be talking about. Is the layoffs that CCP announced earlier this week, and a lot of longtime CCP people being let go, a studio getting shut down, a studio being sold, and we've gotten just a lot of questions from our people today on the fireside from the Imperium about what does this mean for youth players. So we're going to try to discuss this as respectfully as we can. What else we got, Boat?
Yeah, so we're also going to talk in the NoSec Power Hour. We're going to talk about the DRF GOTG war, which now extends into Ketch. It was a little bit into in Amencia, but now it's into Ketch with NC fully deployed to oh shit. And I'm going to drop some dank leaks on that I didn't even write down. I forgot to. But I got some hilarity from that. And then we're also going to talk about FCON Dead. And I wrote DED because to put this quote the best way I can, of all the different quotes I'm going to share today, their alliance head said, "This won't be another branch, guys, don't worry." That was his speech to them yesterday.
What could possibly go wrong?
And then we also have a little question mark, and this came from an Eve thread, and we might include this in the top story a bit too. Someone made a thread that says Hilmar should step down. And I want to see what you guys think about this. It was an interesting read, the way the guy worded it. And after I've talked to some people over the years, they explain how he makes decisions, and it usually goes against his big devs that make smart decisions. It's an interesting discussion point, so we'll get to that. I'll see what you guys think. So yeah, great show. It's going to be exciting.
Okay, so in the background we have the
Capitals.
Imperium. Every month for Saturday of the month on CC, we have a Capital Training Op, so we've got some EVA action there. Hopefully get a chance to see some big explosions as once the fights begin. Before we get stuck in, we've got a few shout-outs here. I've only gotten a chance to see a couple. I've got Artawe and Ingress because I had to reboot my Twitch browser.
Those were the only two.
It's working now, which is good. So yeah, I mean, nominate Aerith also before we get to the top story. We're going to talk the Hilmar question. We can wait for that until we get to the CCP please section. The top story will be just the redundancies. But before we get there, nominate an Aerith. I know you guys are regulars on the show, but can you please just introduce yourselves? Nominate, you go first for first-time viewers.
Hey, I'm a nominate. I'm one of our CSM representatives, and when I'm not doing that, I both run the servers and I deal with goonfuckers.
Ooh.
The director of Goonfucker Affairs, Aerith.
I'm Aerith, and fuck y'all if you don't know me by now.
So would you? I'm not gonna make this joke. Never mind. Carry on.
Perfect.
I was gonna make a really bad joke, but I'll keep it for later. But yeah,
I'm glad you're not.
We're gonna jump right into the top story because this is huge. It's game breaking. And by game breaking, in a good way, a lot of people are looking at this going, oh god, it's the end of Eve. But actually, I think it's better for Eve that they made this decision, both economically and otherwise. I'm going to ask Gareth about this too. From what I've read, CCP makes redundant, for those who don't know, set redundant, our friend CCP Falcon made clear that redundancies are just a way of laying people off or firing people. Their job is no longer needed, so they say you are redundant and you're let go. Hilmar pushed a narrative that the VR is just not there yet. It needs a couple more years. And they're going to look towards mobile games and keeping EVE going strong. So there was a great article done on INN about this. And it also has the Icelandic translation link for everyone about what he said, which he made an announcement just a couple days ago. Yeah.
Awkward, very awkward. I mean, this is not the first time that we've seen firings from CCP. You can try
Mass
to corporate
firings.
speak it. Yeah, well, the thing that like the way that companies tend to do this is if they have to let somebody go, particularly the way that from what I understand European labor laws work, is it's very hard to let somebody go for cause. So what we've seen in past mass firings, layoffs, whatever you want to call it, that there are entire studios get shut down. This has happened before. And you also see a lot of random, what might be described as collateral damage of people who might have in an American company been let go previously. It's sort of all bundled together to happen at once. So it's very confusing to watch because there's these business reasons which appear to be entirely legitimate, and then a lot of people are left scratching their heads as to what happened and why. But we don't know. I mean, but our CSMs might. So I want to throw this over.
Yep.
Let's start off with, Aerith and Anominate were both over there fairly recently. The last summit was just a couple months ago, and are going back over there, I think, in January. So Aerith, how should we interpret this as a player base?
I would interpret it as kind of a non-event from an EVE perspective. If anything, I would interpret it as, well, at least we'll have executive management attention on EVE and almost exclusively EVE again. So that'll be good. But from a meta perspective or from just a business perspective, CCB has been pursuing different revenue streams for many, many years. This is not the first time they failed. It probably won't be the last. That's business. They're going to have to get something beyond EVE as an income stream. Like, that is not enough. Once they get down to it, they will probably try again in another year or two. But at this point, I don't think we read much into this. Like, they tried something, they failed, they shut it down, at least in a somewhat quick manner, and they're refocusing.
And Nominate?
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty much in the position now that they're out of money to work on their other stuff, so they have to focus on the only thing they have that actually does make them money.
Yeah, I think that this puts together some of the things that we saw in Vegas that struck me as unusual now make a lot more sense. So one of the things I want to put out there for everyone is something like this, when they're closing down a studio, an entire American office, as well as selling off Newcastle. This is something that took many months to plan and execute. So now that the player base is aware of it, in a lot of ways, we need to look backwards to see what CCB has done from an executive perspective in light of what we now know today.
Yeah. So what we do know, though, is the breakdowns like this: 100 employees, 30 of which came out of Iceland. The rest are foreign offices. The entire VR department's gone. CCP Atlanta will close its doors, which is kind of hilarious in a way. I say in a bad hilarious because on the front page of their hiring page on the Atlanta website, it shows the guy that got fired or recently let go. So it's like, we're hiring, and here's the guy. Oh, wait, he no longer works for the company. So they still haven't updated date yet. So this is all really quick. Also, the Newcastle office is being sold. That is being sold to another company rather than being just shut down. And then 7 community devs are gone. That has seven community devs left the company. There are 5 left at CCP out of the original 12. That includes CCP Falcon, CCP Guard. The list of big names that we do know are gone. CCP Lilu, who was the CSM rep for a while, most notably during Scion's era. CCP Manifest, who was there for 10 years, including 2 years at a previous CCP company. He was their head of PR. Anytime you needed a person to come on a show, you had to deal with him. He also handled all the eVegas player chats. So they're going to have to get someone else for that, because that's actually a really fun thing to watch. And then CCP Logibro, which is the Alliance Tournament head guy. He runs all the Alliance tournaments in the last few years. So those are the 3 big ones. Also, The information I got is the way they did it is instead of firing people, they gave them the option to move to Iceland. This is the second time they've done that as far as I've been around, where it's like, hey, you can come to Iceland, work in Iceland, otherwise you're not going to have a place to work, so you're going to be redundant and we'll let you go. And there were several people who could have just came to Iceland, including Manifest, and they were like, yeah, I'm just going to stay where I live, and that's that.
Yeah, one of the things that's tough about this is, obviously a company, for liability reasons, cannot and should not talk about who was removed and why.
Right.
So there is, in the aftermath of any mass purge in the games industry, and sadly, this is quite common. The games industry is one of the most unstable industries out there in terms of employee churn. Studios are born, they get shot in the head by EA. You see this in the news a couple times, practically once a month. If you are Facebook buddies with people in the games industry, you see people lose their jobs randomly because the studio imploded. And it is just kind of a shitty, weird thing.
Yeah, another thing here too, for those that don't know, I did some more research because I remember this being kind of a point, and I wasn't 100% sure, so I did some more research to check, and I did find out that originally they took out a $30 million loan for doing this VR thing. And if you remember the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about how VR is kind of face-planted. There's only been 100 people playing it at peak, maybe 120. They tried to put several games together, and those didn't really get a lot of traction. So when you have $30 million taken out, and you're paying a lot of people a big chunk of that money, and it just doesn't pan out, that's a lot of money you got to recoup somewhere. So you can see why that's a big deal with this.
One of the things about that, and we reported on that funding round because I think it was about a year ago. You saw Hilmar and crew went to a VR conference. I think it was in Taipei, and came back with some financing. And one of the reasons why we no longer have access to public financial reports from CCP every year. Previously speaking, we would get that and we would analyze the hell out of it every year to see how the company was doing. But when they got that new source of investment from Taipei, they paid off a bunch of their previous creditors from other bonds that they had, which had a reporting requirement. So, that investment nominally was for VR, but it's not like when you get an investor, it's like flagged, this must be for VR.
Oh,
it's more of a profitability thing. But it is definitely curious. We have less of an idea about what's going on within CCP because that financing round removed any pre-existing reporting requirement.
Yeah, so that happened. Also, another thing I did a lot of looking into this week because, it was big news. You had a lot of opinions from people as they stepped away. Most notably, this was reported, CCP Lilu, or ex-CCP Lilu, as she put her Twitter as, wrote, "This will be the biggest mistake the company makes." And I don't know if I agree with that. And I'm curious what CSN thinks, because I think for an EVE player, this puts a lot more focus on EVE and devs towards EVE. And EVE is their money, right? As of this moment, other projects have failed. So EVE is the only thing making them money. So I see this as a good thing. But I'm curious what you guys think.
I'm confused. What exactly is the mistake? Laying off the people who are working on games that are never going to make any money?
Well, I think her way of wording it, she had a really long post, but the snippet is that it had to do a lot with laying off community developers, people who go out and, for example, one of the guys that got nipped was a guy in Germany who handled all the German language ports. So he was.
She was talking about people in the community team because she was on the community team.
Right.
And she was saying, yeah. Are you familiar with the post nominate or have you seen it?
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
Okay, Eric, please.
Why don't you?
So this is an area that's very, very sensitive. We got to be careful here because we obviously have a very deep history, and a lot of that history is probably not known publicly with certain individuals. So we, I think, have been very quiet with regards to a lot of these events for good reason. There's no reason to make adversarial kind of comments or reactions, even though you may want to. I don't think that's appropriate in this case.
Right. I don't think so. Yeah, I'm just curious what you guys think. Do you think her opinion's valid, that this is a mistake for the game in the long run?
Not necessarily, no. you don't know what they do in a year. Maybe in a year they hire a couple new people, fresh blood. Maybe they don't need as much translation. Maybe they, like Falcon said on the other show, most of it's outside, an outside shop anyway. There's probably cost considerations. They probably understand what their costs are going to be for the next year or two, and they're probably planning on that long-term horizon right now, because they need to get to a point where they're not only revenue positive, but paid off any debts they have, but then have enough cash flow later to be able to do another attempt at something, whether it's another VR or some other genre like mobile, like they're doing now. They need funds for that, so they're gonna have to free up cash.
See, I see this like a teacher. Imagine, like, I deal with this as a teacher. You'll see a teacher who's been in it 15 years. If they don't have a tenure system, they might fire that teacher for some random reason, or look for an excuse to let that teacher go to hire a newer teacher because it costs them less in the long run, right? And you look at the situation with Eve, where a lot of the community developer devs, in most cases, especially GMs, tend to be players. Not a lot of experience in gaming world. They just bring them in because the community loves them, and you could pay that guy less than you could pay someone who been there 10 years, you know?
I think I would just say that losing Logibro was bad for the game.
Yeah, that was a bad one. Yeah,
Yeah, I like
of
that.
all the
That's
people
fair
I
to
can
say.
think of, that's the worst one to lose.
Yeah, there's it is really difficult. Like, it's one of those things where everybody, like, on the one hand, rumors are a big problem in a scenario like this, because everybody is trying to gossip because it's the only thing you could do. People in general are not willing to make public statements, and so because the thing about the games industry is that you do typically have a future at some other company if you had a good reputation. I mean, you've seen veterans from CCP who have been laid off in previous restructurings, call them what you will, pick up jobs at Ubisoft, working for EA, working for Riot Games has a tremendous number of former CCP people.
Yep.
So you really do have a future in the industry. I will say, because of that, it was unusual to see a Facebook post like what Lilo wrote.
Yeah, I was
and
shocked.
the last time that we saw something like that, in terms of a airing of grievances, or some might call it dirty laundry, the last time we saw something like that as it related to Eve was when, I'm trying to remember his name, it was Nick Blood, I think, wrote an interviewed with The Guardian and gave us that sort of mic drop of an article about what went down with World of Darkness. And he told all, that's where we got our needs more psh joke from, that Guardian piece. But he explicitly stated in that article that the only reason why he was doing it was that he was leaving the games industry forever and burning his bridges, because, you know, these companies do go under or have to lay off staff a lot, and it does present a risk for another company to bring on people who might create a PR scandal on the way
I saw
out.
something like that as, like, she's mad and, well, fuck you, Dad. But it kind of made me wonder if, doesn't that hurt her in the long run? I mean, I don't want to get any more into this than that, but it's like, why would you post something like that? You'd think NDA would prevent something like that, you know? But oh well, move on.
No, there's no NDA. It's just you don't want to do that because future employers look upon that very poorly.
Yeah, and Facebook is, as we all know, public.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was chosen to be a public post because it could have been.
There was an eruption. There was an eruption all over about this, and to kind of calm things down and give a CCP friendly player, because everyone loves Falcon. Let's get this right. I love Falcon. He's a cool dude, and he's always been really awesome. My favorite experience with him is a friend of mine who was wheelchair bound won something at Vegas the year I went, and could not get there in time to hear his name called. They called someone else. I explained to Falcon where the guy was, and he took care of it. Right, no problems asked, no questions asked. So he's a really awesome guy. Oh look, Capital Fight on a Fort Desire. Nice. So here's a clip of him today. He was on Talking to Stations. This is him describing to lay the situation. He's talking about the situation with CCP in regards to their community management.
So, I mean, we can talk about kind of size and structure. So the community team forms part of a larger team, which is known as communications within CCP. That team was 12, and it's now 5. So, that's a big drop in numbers. But with the fact that we're not going to be devoting so much time to our VR projects now, so we're not going to be, running around to big major events, that kind of stuff with Valkyrie and Spark, it gives us a lot more downtime and a lot more time that's surplus that we can use on other stuff. And that other stuff, of course, is Eve, because that's now our primary focus. So will I say, yeah, we can handle this, no problem at all? No, I won't say that. It's going to be a challenge. There's going to be probably a lot of long days for us. There's going to be a lot of stuff that we're going to have to sort of shift around, add to our skill sets, that kind of thing. We're going to have to mess around a little bit more in terms of learning new things, doing new things, deciding that, for the return on investment, some stuff just might not be something we want to do anymore. We might spark up new different projects. Like, it's a big downturn in numbers of people who are devoted to doing this, but
it's also less on your plate.
Yeah, to an extent, yeah, but I mean,
okay, so I was trying to share my audio with you so you could know when I was going to stop it, but yeah, so he even has a good outlook. I mean, Matterall prefaced that with you're one of the faces of the company. I know it's hard for you to say certain things, but what do you think about X? And then that's when he went into that. So that's when it was confirmed. A lot of people had rumors that it was down to 2 community developers, and that's a very small amount. He also pointed out in that speech a little later on that he didn't go to Amsterdam this weekend. Guard went by himself. He was supposed to go, but there's a lot more stuff going on at the office all of a sudden that he has to take care of, a lot of new things he's working on, so he didn't have the time. So he decided not to go to a player meetup and is busy working. So that kind of shows you how awesome he is. So yeah, that's where we're at with that. So I don't know. It's an interesting.
I mean,
outlook.
I think from a business perspective, like, I sort of, I think there are a few options here, right? Like, I think that it is a shame whenever any employee has to be let go because of a error in business judgment. And in many cases, taking risks and attempting to diversify the product portfolio of a company like CCP is not an error in business judgment. It is a strategy. You have to take shots. Sometimes you miss. Sometimes you rebrand your website and everybody loves it. Sometimes you launch a Kickstarter and everybody hates it. You have to, as someone involved in business, you have to get out there and attempt to try things and make products, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. So from a Eve perspective, I think that the drama that was created surrounding the question of the community team obscures the idea of just developers and a focus on Eve itself, right? When I look at Eve today, the biggest problems that we have to talk about so often on the Meta Show relate to the errors from FuzzySoft, not things related to needing more localization support or community stuff. So it is a shame, but at the same time, if CCP is, I want to talk about the licensing thing actually. So this is something that I haven't seen much commentary on. It was extremely unusual at Vegas that Hilmar and crew announced that the mobile game was being developed by a third-party developer. To my knowledge, that is the first time that CCP has entered into a license agreement for the EVE Online intellectual property to allow another developer to completely ground up code and produce Project Aurora. And the reason why that is significant, I believe, from a business perspective, is it is a full pivot. CCP has only ever licensed their IP for books and possibly for attempts at movies and TV shows before. And this actually gives them a path forward if they don't fuck it up.
Right.
What they can be doing here, Games Workshop does this, and Games Workshop is an example of a company that licenses their IP to a bunch of developers, and in many ways Games Workshop, from what I've heard, is quite difficult to work with because they're really anal about what actually gets licensed and what doesn't. They yanked Fantasy Flight Games' license and left a whole bunch of products in the lurch. But if CCP's path forward for revenue is to find other developers who have a track record that's successful of developing new games and makes money from royalties and licensing fees, I think that is a path forward that will keep CCP potentially in a lot of profit, as well as expand the EVE universe. It's a great IP, and there's a lot of opportunities. If a company that was more experienced in FPSs had gotten a license to make a EVE FPS instead of Dust on a PC platform, we could have been in a very different world. So I hope that is the direction that they're going in, and I hope we see more of that because that does present them a path forward.
It's kind of like the Battlefield franchise and then EA and then going into Star Wars Battlefront. Star Wars giving them the license. Star Wars don't make games. They give someone else the right to make the games and use all their property. And I think that's what works with this mobile game. There was a good article recently that said that EVE Online is considered one of the highest games for microtransactions. They're actually famous in this article. Pointed out that they're the top microtransaction guy.
You have me imagining there. What if PlanetSide 2 were made with an EVE license?
Exactly. I mean, there's a tremendous opportunity for CCP to, once they've brokered like the legal work that goes into brokering a license agreement, once you have a template for it, is something that you can scale relatively well. And this is because lots of companies do this as their business model. They get a good IP, and then people want to use it, and then they make money off of the royalties and the license fees. So there is so much opportunity. The areas where CCP has screwed up in the past historically is trying to take basically Icelandic family style, let's not rock the boat development attitudes and code products that require a fully functional modern capitalist dev studio. Like Newcastle is a good example of this. Newcastle is a fully functional dev studio. It is being sold off because it has value. That Newcastle group, even though it had a CCP label on it, developed a number of successful products. And they engaged in pivots as well. So it wasn't just like they made one game and it didn't work.
I can't remember.
That's where Valkyrie came out of.
Oh, yeah, Valkyrie, okay.
As well as, I think, some of... Gunjack was done in Shanghai, I think. But Newcastle had...
Sorry, another thing that was pointed out by Falcon too, though, with regards to the property, Valkyrie, Gunjack, all these games are still in CCP's full control. So we might see them again in a couple years when VR is cheaper. Like right now, the idea is VR is too expensive. Nobody in their right mind is going to spend $1,000 to get a good VR rig that can play these games as well as they should be played and enjoy them. So maybe in 2-3 years, CCP is thinking on this, that we can open it back up and go back into it.
You don't really see other companies, and I think this is another industry-related point, is other companies have been a little bit more cautious about VR. So you do see, for example, Bethesda's entry into the VR market. I'm not even sure whether it's been released yet, but the only thing they've said about it is they're making Fallout 4 VR, which has been demoed at a couple of E3s now. So in other areas, you're seeing companies taking an existing product and sort of bolting a VR option onto it. The people who have really been developing VR from the ground up, completely new property coded purely for VR stuff, it's much riskier that way, and that's what CCP did with Spark and with Valkyrie, which they then had to back off and un-VR. And indie game developers. Those are, I think, the only examples I can think of, and I could be wrong on this, guys. Please correct me. If other major companies have done ground-up VR-only projects that are not modifications of existing products.
I think it's a lot more than just cost, too. VR is the best thing that has ever happened to sim nerds. Mm-hmm. For everybody else, they're still trying to figure out how to make games that don't make people sick.
Yeah, that's a good point, because, why is that? It's because in Sims, it's a scenario where you're seated there, you're in a cockpit, right? You're not moving around.
Yeah.
Right, so your brain is expecting the motions that you're seeing. Whereas, if you have it just without a cockpit and you see a room and the room moves, but you're not moving, that's nausea-inducing.
Yeah, another thing that was happening too is like they tried roller coasters, just a basic roller coaster, and people were falling over because the roller coaster would go down, their head would move forward with it naturally, and they would fall flat on their face and break the VR headsets. So they even things as simple as like a basic roller coaster, they were having to take that out of VR.
Augmented reality seems to be where a lot of the money is going. The VR headsets that people have been using. I didn't get an opportunity to do this in Vegas, and I kind of regret it now. But there's always more Vegas adventures. But you're starting to see these augmented reality amusement park style events where you can go to kind of like a holodeck. You put on the VR stuff, but you can actually like walk around and like shoot at zombies, and you're in VR, but you have less of a disruptive experience because you're actually physically moving around a room, and like you've got a backpack or something to handle all the tech.
They did one recently where it's a VR headset, and then it comes with like a place where you stand like a treadmill that moves as you move. So you're held in place by your torso, but your feet move, and then your body feels like it's moving. So like a first-person shooter experience. They're doing that recently. Another one I saw that just came out, it's being kickstarted by a company that makes the VR headsets already. They're trying a new venture, is to make your keyboard show up in VR. So like if you're a developer working on something, you can have the VR goggles on, and as you type, your keyboard shows up on screen. You can see what you're typing, see what you're pressing, and then you're able to still work in a virtual reality world. And
or you could just learn that.
Or you could just learn what?
Learn to type.
Learn to type. Yeah, one of the things that is weird about this is I think that when VR came out, the two games that were really the knock your socks off, wow, this has so much potential, were the Valkyrie demos, the original Valkyrie demos before it got all weird, and Elite Dangerous. And when I used VR, and I think it was 2014, that E3, and I got to use the VR headset when flying in Elite Dangerous and using the HOTAS setup, like the actual full-blown, you see your joystick and your thrust control and everything matches in VR, the physical responses. It was a almost transcendent religious experience. And the failing was not, wow, this matches up with the tech in the game really well. The failing was then once you got out into Elite Dangerous, it was an okay game. It was a really awesome spaceflight sim, but it wasn't a game where you were a large number of people. It wasn't a good enough game. It's just a nice way to say it. It was pretty cool. I'm really delighted that Elite Dangerous existed, but Elite Dangerous in many ways, kind of like Eve, it's not there yet. They're still doing expansions and all this other sort of stuff. There isn't the confluence in place and time of amazing new technology and breathtaking game that everybody can't stop talking about. I think that if Elite or Valkyrie were just the best fucking games ever, it would have pulled a lot more people into VR.
I think someone pointed this out, and this was unrelated to Eve, but I think it could port into Eve pretty well, is with the reason the keyboard thing was a big deal is people saw it as a way to set up like a Star Trek style like command center, you know, like the wherever they run the ship from, and like each person, you could be there with 10 friends, and all 10 of you are each doing a console. And you're
like
VR.
Artemis Bridge Simulator. Right. VR would be great
but
for that.
VR,
yeah.
and imagine an Eve where you could relive a famous Eve battle. I'm gonna make CCP money here, but you're commanding a spaceship, so you and like 10 guys are commanding a Wyvern, and you're controlling it from different consoles, like making the Wyvern go forward and backward, messing with the fighters. Each person has a fighter, you know, something like that. The thing about Gunjack is Kunmi bought a full VR rig to do this. Is one of the Bomberoff guys. He's also a really cool dude. And he said, you play it for 3 weeks, and unless there's a group of core friends you're playing with, you lose critical mass, and then nobody can enjoy it, because you don't have enough people to play constantly. And then it's boring. So I think that's the problem with this. Someone said B-R5. Yeah, that was the idea behind Gunjack, was eventually going to get to a point where, maybe not Gunjack, but the other one, where you could experience these battles in VR. You know, like recreating these historic Eve battles. So that would be amazing to see if they could do it. But yeah, anyways, we gotta move on because we got more shit.
Yeah, let's. I think we'll hit the Nullsec Power Hour next. Let's do some shout outs because I saw that we got a fair amount of them. Bode, I think you got the roster.
I'm gonna scroll up here. Maybe I missed it. Rip, I might have missed it. Hold on. Yep. Damn it.
Good job.
I'm so bad. Hold on. I was so busy enjoying the conversation. Hold on. I can pull it up though.
Fuck FCon, says Conran. That was something that Conran was pointing out earlier, was odd to see me comment about Icelandic culture. It's hard for CSM, it's hard to understand CCP unless you understand Iceland. And I'm not saying that I have a perfect understanding of it, nor do I want to have one, but there's a lot of things that happen at CCP that only make sense if you've spent some time in Iceland, hanging out, talking to people who are there, the cultural divisions, some of the practices. It's kind of like if you took the most passive-aggressive parts of the upper Midwest, ripped them up, and put them on an island in the North Atlantic where everybody else's cousin.
We did have a 30-month resub, but I missed it. Sorry, I missed it. I did
Status 07, probably. I'm guessing status.
Sorry! There was another one, too, and there was two, 30-month ones. I have a dashboard that lets me see all these in the past, but I didn't have it open at the time because I completely forgot we still had it. We have this new thing. I missed it. Yeah, City's 33 months. Thank you very much.
Look at those sexy ships. Got a very nice.
Hells have been dying. Lots of hells.
This is the CC Capital training op for the Imperium, and first Saturday of every month we get to swing our EPSs around.
Yeah, it's funny. The Minakawas and shit always blow up bigger than the super carriers. Super carriers look cool when they die, though, when you zoom in on them. But I'm trying to watch. There's a dead Erebus right there.
Rishan Bill, 33 months. Goddamn.
Yeah, that was the other one too. There we go. Okay, that was the two I missed. Super sorry. I seriously, I am so sorry. Again, we got this new thing and I forgot to open it. And a lot of people are talking in chat. Usually I can scroll back and see them, but we have more people talking. So we need to move on.
Okay.
I'll press button. See, right there. Someone just subscribed.
I'm going to say
Thank you very much.
Marco Canton, give him a shout out right now, such that that doesn't.
Let me see if it popped up. It's I have this thing open, and we'll see if it.
I see it, and it did in fact just pop up on the Stream Elements. Yeah, so that's good.
No, yeah, but on Stream Elements, I'm not seeing it, so I have to yell at the people to handle this because I'm supposed to be seeing it.
I got it. I saw it pop up. Anyway.
Okay. Anyway, so Nullsec Power is gonna jump right in, and the first thing on the deck is the war going on in the DRF space. It's the Guardian of the Galaxy versus DRF in the north. They were shocked by Tri during an evac just this week. Lost some supers. They lost some key systems in the drones as GOTG security beachhead. But while they security beachhead, they went on vacation this weekend. They went home to make money, which is kind of weird when you're in a full-on blitz to kill someone. So here's a link of the solve map and the situation going on there. And then here's a great little battle report wrote on 9N. It showed how the fight went down. Basically, GOTG told Tri about a move up that was going to go on with the DRF to head back home. And then, surprise, they all died.
This war is a mess. I mean, first of all, fuck FCon. I think that's something that we just need to sort of get out of the way here. Full disclosure, fuck FCon. This war is, we talked about this last week, and this war is continuing to be a thing, and none of the parties have really prepared for lifeblood, which is one of the things that is fascinating from an economic perspective. I mean, Aerith, what did you take away from last week's meta show when we had a lot more people on the show, but there are all the parties involved in the DRF versus GOTG war, which still doesn't have a good name, but it didn't really seem like they swore collectively that they were preparing for lifeblood. What was your impression on all that, Aerith?
Well, not only were they not prepared, they didn't even understand it. Like, I remember, who was it? I don't remember. One of them spoke up and was talking about the moons of Hansket, maybe Billy. He didn't even understand how to value the moons. All they had were some scans, and they thought moons were equivalent. You'd have to calculate inputs and outputs of them. Like, they didn't even understand. And I was just like, are you kidding me now? We're 2 weeks past this, and you don't have number crunchers now? Where
people were mad at you also in chat because they thought that you were it was a pearls before swine kind of thing, not our guests actually, because our guests were not being shitty to Aerith, but when Aerith was explaining how these things were working, people were saying, oh, Aerith is just jacking himself off, and I'm still not. Are you seeing any economic activity on the eastern half of the galaxy involved in this war to grapple with these changes? Are they reacting? Do you see anything on the market?
There's some reaction, but it's spotty. Like, if you kind of look,
I don't even think it was Villy. I think Villy is now calling you out in chat, saying he understands the value of moons and he's got a better app than you do for it. It got automated. It got automated.
Spicy.
It might have been Garst, or we didn't have Garst on last time. It was the other
Villy was
Captain Patrick Archer.
Somebody was talking about like they just didn't care.
We asked everybody about moons, and we definitely got a lot of we're totally prepared for it. Which is good.
Their response was something like, "Well, we think we have like almost the same number we had before." Like, that's not even like.
Yeah, not a lot of people were prepared. They just didn't care. Like I think Tri even said, well, "Who cares? We're busy fighting the war," and that's not really a good thing to have, is it, Eric? Going into this patch is like, yeah, we'll get to it eventually.
Well, no, I mean, like the way we played this, and we're already so far ahead now. It doesn't really matter, so we got it. But the way we played it was we weren't even going to try to build bottom up. Like everyone right now is trying to scrabble around and put stuff on their moons and then frack their moons and then get their little thing going. And we're like, yeah, we could do that. Or we could just stockpile a whole bunch of moon shit so we can start reacting day one and be cashing in when everyone else is trying to fucking scrabble around their moon still. So, okay, but the meta is like past everyone scrabbling. That's going to be 2 to 3 runs right now before everyone even towers all their R64s and gets a good cycle going. So have fun in that 90 days. Like, that's where the fun is right now.
Speaking of that 90 days, I'm going to do a hard segue here. As part of this progression, we have seen NC Dot move to Oh Shit in Curse and brought a crap ton of dreadnoughts there, which has sort of put a sort of Damocles over all of the conflicts that could be happening in the range of Curse. But in the midst of this, we saw Killa B left PL last week on the show. Actually, was it 2 weeks ago when that dread drop happened? I guess it was 2 weeks ago.
Last week is when Killa... Well, 2 weeks ago the Killa B was on the show, but last week is when he left.
Right. Yeah, so 2 weeks ago he was on the show. He was in PL. He got dropped by Pro God Legend. He lost that PL Dread fleet, and then actually told us a lot of interesting things about how PL works. And I was thinking to myself, this is a bit odd. Killa B is answering all my questions about PL's renter system. Like, I've never had such a fulsome disclosure from a PL guest on the show. And then next thing you know, he is in NC Dot.
Yeah, so wow. I have some information about that. So I got some dank leaks. First of all, and I haven't got this confirmed by Killa B yet because he's at Amsterdam along with Vince Dragon. A bunch of those guys are over there right now. But from what I'm told, and this is from what I'm told from inside, is him and Denkul. Denkul is a really famous PL dude who... likes the Titan Rat. They both like the Titan Rat. He, of course, owns Cormac, the giant Vanquisher, and he was riding in a system he wasn't supposed to be riding in. And they have, like, the rental system. Remember they talked about that a couple weeks ago? Mm-hmm. He wasn't where he's supposed to be, and Danko called him out. And he's like, dude, what the fuck you doing? And he threw a fit. And when he threw a fit, they both went back and forth, and apparently someone over both of them came in and was like, look, Killa B, you're wrong. Either move or get the fuck out. So it's like, okay, I'm taking my corp and leaving. And when joined NC Dot, moved 2 systems over and kept riding. So he literally just joined NC Dot. On top of that, he developed a new doctrine for NC Dot. I believe it's him that's running this because I saw him. I've seen it the last couple days. It's a version of the initiative Snatch Raven fleet, but instead of Ravens, they're using rocks that can hit the 300 kilometers. So an instant application of damage. They use nothing but rocks, a dictor, and like 5 jump ships, and then just jump around and all that. So that's kind of hilarious. And even more leaks coming out of them. They moved these giant amount of dreads, but they haven't got a chance to use them at all. They've been getting slapped around, so much so that we showed up and there was 1,000 guys in local, and none of their allies showed up like they were supposed to. PL, P-Horde, Try. Nobody showed up to help NC Dot with a timer. It was a second timer for a Fortizar with Test. They didn't show up. We came all the way from Delve, and PL and P-Horde couldn't be asked to form up 1 jump away. That happened, and then it gets even better. Internally, their leadership's having fun with this, but their line members, there's been a lot of griping going on of, hey, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, we're not winning. We're not blobbing them. We're not getting dank fights. We're just getting kicked around. I mean, just a minute ago, they used Max, Test flash formed Maelstroms, and slaughtered them. Killed about 40 Max for like 2 battleships. And tested them were living across the border. And it's interesting, if you have not been paying attention, they live in this situation, they're both deployed. One's in UHQ, one's in oh shit. Tess can't bridge that gap. They have to gate into oh shit, right? They have to go into oh shit to do anything. They have to gate their caps and supers into oh shit. They can't reinforce very easily without using that gate because it's a midpoint and then a jump to get to oh shit if you want to fuck with NC. So NC's in like a strategic advantage here of doing this, and they're getting stomped on. And it's kind of telling. I think PL's fucked. This is where I'm getting out of this. Like, PL's in a bad situation. They just got nobody running the show there. I mean, maybe
we haven't heard from a Nominate in a while. A Nominate,
Oh,
what do you think about the PL scenario?
I don't really know. I'm actually kind of confused what that whole shit show is.
I mean, from an outside perspective, it's extremely unusual to hear about, basically the story about Killa B and ratting drama would make sense if this was AFCON, right? Like, two senior directors in an alliance were having a squabble over a ratting system, and then one left for an ally so they could rat the way they wanted to. That's the kind of, I would expect that from AFCON. We've definitely seen a lot of high-profile players leaving PL recently. It keeps popping up on Reddit, and what's interesting is that this kind of stuff is spilling into the open, and you even see in the Killa B thread, you see Manny, Manfred Sidious, who was their main FC in BR5, and one of their biggest high-profile FCs, very active FC, hates Goonswarm, at least historically has always hated Goonswarm, so one of our more dangerous enemies, left PL, and I didn't believe it at first, actually. And you saw when that was announced on the Meta Show,
Right.
The first time it came up, I blew it off. I was like, that's bullshit. Manny hasn't actually left PL. That would never happen. He's just probably flying under another banner, but it's totally crap. And then Manny has been on the other side of fights against PL, has helped blow their shit up. And you're starting to see a crew of people like Killa B, like Manny, and several others, who Capri Sun Craft Foods, who are sort of airing a lot of dirty laundry. NC seems to have healthier and larger move ops than PL, so that's something I never thought I'd see.
Yeah, it's interesting too in the sense that when it came to being prepared, you talked about this earlier in the fireside, saying that we were the most prepared. NC, from the reports I got, NC was just about as prepared. Vince mentioned this last week too. The NC was prepared. They had their moons ready to be towered, refineries ready to go. They purchased this stuff ahead of time to get ready to build them. They had lots of money stored. Whereas PL, it was crickets. You have no real leadership playing the game that controls the money. You have a bunch of FCs who get permission to go do stuff, but as Billy points out, the stuff that they want to do is what PL calls dank frags, and they're just not there. There's no alliance they can bully right now. Hell, even Brave is out fucking, at PL. So you're starting to see that content dry up for PL, whereas NC not, they're financially stable. They can just do whatever the fuck they want, right? And I think that's an interesting situation for PL. It's kind of like a crisis of identity. Do we continue to let FCs do what they want and kind of flounder around? Or do we just, I'm
curious if any of that is related to just the inflation of kills over the years. It used to be that a while ago, killing carrier was a big deal. Then carrier ratting became the normal and carrier dying didn't matter. And now we're at the point where a super carrier, a Titan dying isn't a big deal. We're at the point where losing several of them isn't that big of a deal. And when you can't get those huge kills anymore that are a big deal, is that a problem for PL? Because that's historically been their thing.
That's a good question, because I think that big kills are sort of the motivating force for most what I'd call elite PvP alliances:
right.
Adversity, Black Legion, PL, NC Dot. But what's unique here, one of the things that Bode pointed out there, the leadership structure, and God's help me because I'm about to credit Vince Draken's leadership ability on live TV, is PL's, and it actually has less to do with Vince Draken being a good leader or a bad leader. Clearly, he has been an effective leader.
It has to do with being there.
Is that PL's structure, and it's not even about his presence or his absence, because basically, back in the day, PL made all of their money from gambling. they had their casinos, they got their dank gambling-esque whatever. If we have to keep saying dank, I am going to bang my head into the wall until I lose consciousness.
So don't forget
You're
the Alliance
infecting.
tournament.
Yeah, so between like just trying to win the Alliance tournament and trying to have casinos, PL never had to develop a central executive, right? PL always used to brag, and probably still does, about how nobody's responsible for anything and how there's senior leadership and they've got campaign commanders and blah, 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 blah. But to prepare for something like Lifeblood, where you need to have systems of finance in place and the buck has to stop somewhere, right? And you need a finance team, or you at the very least you need a leader to say, this is whose territory, this is what we're going to do to prepare. When you have a distributed responsibility system of a campaign commander, FC, anarchy, well, that's great for fleet commanding in theory, but it leaves you completely vulnerable and unable to prepare when you need to have somebody signing off on a plan 3 months in advance to patch changes.
And this is kind of a big deal too, because again, just a couple weeks ago, people were coming to me with, "Hey, Boat, NC's kind of in a problem here because they don't have the FCs. A lot of their FCs are on breaks." We heard PK told me he's playing another game at the moment. Poison Kevin, you had a lot of the guys from the big war taking breaks, and then now they got Killer B, so they're kind of filling that FC void. They have all the other shit with Vince running the show. And I think that's the big difference. I mean, back when PL had like CEOs that would play the game rather than just do other things, not to mention anyone in particular, they were really powerful and they were always active and they had that like planning ahead. And I don't think they have that right now. But we're running out of time, and there's some things I want to get to that are huge. For example, just recently there was a rumor that Red Menace Coalition is going to Amencia. They're going to try and take the void that FCON is leaving. A lot of comments coming out of Tri about this. I don't know how legit this is because they still have all the solvent period bases. So I don't really see how they're moving. But they have been working with Tri as kind of like get revenge on FCON for when FCON kicked all of Stain out of Ketch. That war happened about last January, I guess. Just recently,
this is I can confirm this. I mean, this is not a big secret. The RMC, like the language barrier, prevents some understanding for the Russian wars. RMC despises Legion of Death and has always despised Legion of Death. So Triumvirate is fighting Legion of Death, and RMC and Tri are working together to prosecute that sort of eternal grudge war. It would be like trying to keep Goonswarm away from fighting in C-Dot, right? It's just whenever these guys have an opportunity to hurt one another, they do it. So I do see a lot of questions about period basis. That is something that does seem to be a bit up in the air. They'll probably just farm it out, or we'll see what happens. From my perspective, speaking personally, as long as they don't go to the point of like setting NC.blue, I really like. Goonswarm's policy usually is like when Russians fight other Russians, we don't just back way the hell off because we're friends with almost all the Russians in EVE, and we want to keep it that way.
So. Billy had a good link there. And speaking of that, remember a couple weeks ago when Pro God Legend and Garst went at it, and he's like, "Look, I don't care if it takes 6 months or a year. I'm going to kill FCON." Well, his prophecy has came true in less time than that. I'd say a week. FCON's dying, and here's some relevant links. We're not going to go into depth too much in this. We're just out of time. There's something else I want to talk about, but there's a lot of relevant links. Go click them. Go read them. They're fucking hilarious. Two notable ones is FCON is an active leadership. They have no one there. He went AFK right in the middle of the war. So this random FC became the de facto leader. He was on the show last week. He's been running the show. Shit got really real. FCON announces an evac. They suicide all of their dreads on their own Keepstar for insurance fraud. Like some of these were like 4 billion dreads. There was a great image of like 60 things suiciding. It was so fucking stupid. Like you would just use them to fight. Like why would you suicide them? That makes no sense. They told their supers, "Look, we're 2 riddled with spies, so you're gonna have to evac on your own. We can't get you out safely." It kind of reminds me of Branch in a way. And then a little bit later, they're like, "Oh, by the way, it's not Branch. We're telling you to get on your own, but."
I think, Boat, could you relink those? I think they all actually got jammed together in one super link.
Let me try to.
I'll comment on the FCON thing while you do that.
Will this be the end of democracy in Eve?
The end of democracy in Eve. We can only fucking hope. I mean,
this is how democracy dies with a thunderous applause.
Yeah, no, this is a fucking mess, right? Like, I feel bad. I feel pity for the guy who came on the show, Alex Turd something or other.
Hold on, let me get his name here. Go ahead.
I don't know why. One of the things Jay wanted me to ask last week was why does he have Turd in his name? Like, why did he make a character like that? But
Turdine.
He might have
Alex Turdine.
Alex Turdine. But like, he basically had to fall on the sword that Tarquinius left for him, right? He was left holding the bag. It's just a mess, right? Like, that's not that guy's fault. I'm going to be the last person to be forgiving or forgetting when it comes to the people within FCON who chose to jump ship when the going got tough in the casino war. And some of the most dedicated people that we have in Goonswarm today are that vast. It was half of FCON. Was so
they came over.
horrified by the cowardly behavior of Tarquinius and his directorate that they joined Goonswarm and have been some of our most dedicated fighters.
I don't want to interrupt your great rant here, but I just got informed that they are killing the democracy in this evac. It is now becoming a dictatorship. So democracy is officially dead with the death of FCON in the South.
The galaxy is a safer place with the death of democracy.
Yeah, so the thing that makes this hilarious, too, is... Hell, Brave is blue to these motherfuckers, and this morning Brave killed a super belonging to FCON as FCON was leaving, and their quote for that was, "Oops, overview bug." So everybody's getting in on this FCON killing. They've lost jump freighters on Fortizarch, which should never happen. I think they've lost 10 jump freighters this week. They've had freighters. Mini Love killed a 20 billion ISK, one of theirs. Just trying to evac. They tried to set up a whole bunch of citadels in... at Therium Reach, where they're planning to evac 2 to help the DRF and kind of stay with the DRF, but those got blown up. Shit's just not going well for FCON, and I mean, while it's great to live where Tess lives, it's kind of a situation with FCON where when you go to leave, I said this about a month ago, you can't get the fuck out of there. Like, they say it's safe to get out, and there's evacs and plans, but it's really not. Like, it's a fucking train wreck to go from the bottom of Teniferous all the way to Losec. You just can't get out of there.
It's, I think, from like a grand diplomacy and politics perspective, what's happening to FCON is an example of why you have to pick sides in EVE and you have to stick by your friends. One of the things about FCON is at every opportunity where the going got tough, they used the excuse of democracy to take the easier path. So whenever anybody would point a gun at them, Triumvirate earlier or before this war, or during the casino war, they would come up with a democracy-related excuse to flip sides and take the easier path. In the history of EVE, there have been so many incidents where an alliance is down and out. But because they made friends, diplomatically speaking, other alliances have given them a couch. Like Goonswarm has a couch that TCF gave us. Legion of Death, we gave a couch to Legion of Death back in the day, and this happens all the time.
Yeah,
but
they're getting I'm getting a report right now from someone in DRF. They're going to the DRF. The democracy has to die as part of it, and they're getting that couch. It's going to be a theory of reach. It's just going to take a while.
Cowards die alone, basically. Like it does apparently. Yeah, you're right. That so they are getting a couch, but it's one of those things where they're not just getting a couch; they're getting told a demand. It's not like, hey, you could get back on your feet. It's
Aren't
like
they getting a couch of a pet though, or even a renter? So they're going to be couching on someone that's not even a real sovereign.
Right. They're not even couching on their own like chunk of land. It's like they're going on the Indian reservation that's been rented out to everyone around them, and the main Indians are still doing their thing, but you can have that little corner of space that no one cares about, and that's kind of where they're at.
I didn't know Razor was still around either.
Yeah, Razor's actually stronger than FCON right now. It's kind of hilarious.
Oh, wow.
And the thing is it's an interesting situation. There's been a lot of pressure, but we're running out of time here, and I did want to bring up two quick things in the CCP Please segment. I won't do the flip over because we're out of time, but I want to get each of yours opinions. One is... WoW just announced this week the release of vanilla servers. So if you want to play WoW in a full, true vanilla setting and get back to the original content, the original PvP, you could do that now. they've realized that their game is subpar compared to a lot of modern MMOs, and they're just not able to keep up. They're releasing content that people just aren't enjoying, so we're going to release vanilla servers, and you can pay to play on those. And a lot of players are looking at that going, hey, CCP, you could do that too. You could make EVE before 2012 without FuzzySov and without jump fatigue, and people can go play on it. What do you guys think?
Where do you draw the line, right? Like,
right, how far back do you go?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, early days of EVE blew ass. I mean, that's the reality. And modern EVE, while we definitely complain about like FuzzySov and we complain about jump fatigue, is a shitload better. Like, if you, it's not. In general, I'm worried of nostalgia. When people think back to the past, they edit out all the really shitty bits, and so they have this happy
no
grass is
stations
greener
zero
memory.
zero. That's someone goes, let's go all the way back to having to warp to bookmarks on gates.
Yeah.
Anyway, Tuesdays. Yeah, and then finally, and I want to get your two CSM's opinions. Somebody wrote a thing, and I kind of went through this, and I did some research, and I agree with it. Based on it, like when I went to FanFest and talked to people that used to be devs and stuff like this, and the idea here is, and this is a good Reddit post about this, it points out all the failures of CCP that were helmed by Hilmar. One of the big examples I could think of this is Monaco Gate, where people told him, hey, make it $5, you'll sell a shitload, and he goes, no, let's make it 60, and kind of overrode his microtransaction devs who were like, hey, we know this will work, just do it this way. And he's like, no, we're going to do it this way, and it just failed miserably. And maybe he's just been in it too long and hasn't really seen the where it's going anymore. Like, he doesn't, like, the Vegas talk kind of pointed that to me. It's like, please stay with us, please. But what do you guys think?
Well, I think that, like, CCP's failures are not really the problem. Like, these are all risky projects. When you go into stuff like this, especially when you're new to it, when you've never done anything else before, this is extremely risky and it's probably going to fail. Where CCP really screwed up, and this is why Incarno was such a huge problem, is because when they started working on these projects, they didn't keep working on EVE. They pulled all of the resources out of EVE and left it running on a shoestring. And that's the part that was the screw-up.
I see. Aerith?
I mean, you're going to take calculated risks in business. They're not all going to work out. And we're not going to sit here and sing the praises of Hilmar on all the things that did work out, right? Like, we're not noticing those, right? Has he made some bad calls? Sure. Will I expect that he'll make some in the future? Sure, but that's business. As long as he gets more right than he gets wrong, that's great for EVE. So I think the alpha thing is going to be something where they expand alphas that's going to kind of play out, and I don't know if he had any decision-making ability. Well, I know he had the ability, but I don't know if he had any involvement in that decision of how they're going to expand alphas. But that's the next big bet that CCP is going to do. So that's the one I'm going to watch.
I think that the only comment I'll have on this one is based upon the market realities, I don't see anything wrong with this restructuring. And I'm not speaking of any individual hiring or firing, but the decision to sell Newcastle and to consolidate the international offices, it seems like a sound decision based upon the market realities. And so it strikes me more of, I'm very skeptical of any, hey, some Redditor is mad and says that a CEO should go because they are butt blasted and they want to join a Tiki Torch outreach program. Like torches and pitchforks, whatever. Like, VR didn't take off. If VR did take off, CCP would have been positioned to do great things. VR, the planning horizon, the planning horizon in business is so much longer than consumers think about. So consider this. CCP was already starting from, if I remember correctly, was already heavily invested in thinking about exploring VR before Facebook acquired Oculus. And a lot of people got skeptical of VR when Facebook acquired Oculus, and the number of units sold for Oculus was shit. That was not something that CCP could have planned for in any way. So it's the halo effect. It didn't work, so people will say, you suck. You had a Kickstarter that didn't work, it was terrible. You had VR that didn't work, it was terrible, you're awful. Blame always goes to the top. So we would be having a very different conversation and singing his praises as a visionary if the market had gone a different way. And beyond that, I don't want to assign blame or praise.
I think the answer to this question depends a lot on information we don't have. basically,
Exactly.
how long did it take CCP to realize this? Like, are they doing this because they are literally out of money, or are they doing this because they have plenty of money but now have recognized that this isn't going to go anywhere?
Right.
Like, are they doing this because they have no choice, or are they doing this because, Hilmar said, okay, this isn't going to work, we're going to have to do something else?
Right. And so that's it. We have some shout outs now that I got it working. I worked with Life Shifter for the last little bit here and got it working. So Scooter McCabe, 24 months. So 2 years.
Oop,
He says,
2 years.
Shout
Oh,
out
yeah.
to Mittens. Dank shout out to Mittens on that one. Zetas, wonderful Prime subscriber. Thank you. Marco Paricio, Prime subscriber. We got a $3.69 donation that said fuck FCon from Con Orion.
Fuck FCon.
Another subscriber earlier we missed called Horan. Thank you very much, sir. And then Sadis 33 months says, go ahead and take my money. And then Recent Star Fury for 33 months said, we gave Bernie a lesson in socialism. We took the votes he earned and redistributed them. What? Why is he... Okay, he's trying to make an Eve joke.
DNC joke.
Right, he's trying to make a democracy joke here, but I didn't think it worked very well. And then Ingress of 14 months. And then Metro Rocks from Artie, 8 months. Woo! I think that's everybody. I think we got it.
Congratulations.
We did it.
All right, thanks a lot, guys. We will be back next week. And
Yes, we
if
will.
you are in the Imperium, the first track, I think, just got started about 10 minutes ago. So,
by the way,
let's get those work calls out.
Real quick, before we go, next week's show is going to be like last week's. Instead of CEOs, it's going to be diplomats. I've been talking with various diplomats, organizing, getting them on the show. The Goon diplomat will hopefully be Twizzle Spark because Miranda doesn't do shows. But there's a possibility it will be like 8 different diplomats from all the different big players of each.
And the belt is almost gone already. That's excellent.
Rip!
That will...
Okay, gotta go. Bye!
Cheers, guys.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.